I used to think money couldn't change a man. Turns out $40 million will change everyone around him long before it changes him. The settlement hit my account on a Thursday. Gray skies, cold wind, and a dull ache in my ribs that never healed right after the refinery blast. I remember staring at the screen at the bank, the numbers so big they looked fake, like something from a dream you don't trust. People think windfalls fix you. Nah, they sharpen the knives already pointed your way. The refinery accident should have killed me. Half the west scaffolding blew, sending me 20 feet into metal and concrete. The lawyers called me miraculously alive. I called it hurt enough to be angry, but breathing enough to suffer. The company wanted the lawsuit buried. I wanted the truth. $40 million was their way of telling me to shut up. But the payout came with mandatory psychological evaluation, part of the settlement terms. That's how Dr. Raymond Keller walked into my life, smiling, polished, eyes like a reptile wearing human skin. He talked slow, like every word he said was a gift he expected me to thank him for. At first, I played along. Therapy never scared me. I've done worse things than talk about my feelings. Buried brothers, held dying friends, watched relationships rot from the inside out. But Keller's questions had a strange bend to them. They curved back, cornering me. Do you find yourself agitated lately? Has anyone ever suggested you're a danger to yourself? Do you ever feel like disappearing might be a relief? I'd answer straight, and he'd twist it. I'd shrug, and he'd scribble like I'd confessed a murder. One afternoon, about a month after the settlement, he leaned forward in that too-clean office of his. Diplomas on the wall, expensive whiskey on the shelf, a smell like antiseptic and lies. You've suffered a traumatic event, he said softly. And your recent behavior suggests you may not be capable of handling the responsibilities that come with such a large sum. I stared at him. All I've done is stay home and heal. He smiled. That's exactly what concerns me. I walked out of that session with a knot in my gut. There was something hunting me. I felt the weight of eyes everywhere. The bank teller's hesitation when she told me my withdrawal needed approval, the nurse in Keller's clinic who flinched whenever I asked for my own medical files, the sudden emails from insurance reps wanting updates on my status. Someone out there decided I wasn't sane enough to own my own life. The next week, Keller escalated. He kept hammering the same questions, circling the same damn drain. He grew bolder, more impatient, like he was on a deadline I didn't know about. Have you considered you might be experiencing delusions? I'm concerned you're becoming volatile. You seem paranoid. Paranoid, yeah. Funny thing about paranoia. It stops being a disorder when someone actually is coming for you. The final straw came when Keller, without looking up from his tablet, said, I'm arranging an emergency evaluation team. It's just precautionary. You may be held overnight for observation. Held. Not stay if you want. Held. That's when I finally saw the trap. If I got labeled unstable, even temporarily, control of my estate could be transferred. Conservatorship, legal guardianship. My $40 million would fall into someone else's hands. Someone who just happened to be positioning himself very neatly. Walking out of the clinic that day, I caught my reflection in the glass. 50 years of scars, rage compressed into a man-shaped container, leather jacket torn at the shoulder, hands that had done too many hard things to ever look innocent again. A man the system would gladly call dangerous if it meant taking what he'd earned. There was only one person left who'd understand the kind of fight I was walking into. One man I never wanted to call again. My brother, Rook, Sergeant-at-Arms of the Iron Vipers Motorcycle Club, exiled from my life, but never from my blood. I stared at my phone a long time before dialing. The wind cut through my jacket, cold and sharp, like someone whispering that the real hell was just beginning, and they hadn't even tried to lock me up yet. The night they came for me started quiet. Too quiet for a man who hadn't slept right in months. I'd been sitting at my kitchen table, staring at the last beer in the fridge like it could answer questions. The house was dim, just a single lamp buzzing above me, throwing long shadows across the floorboards. My ribs ached, my spine crackled every time I shifted, and my mind kept replaying Keller's words. You may be held overnight for observation. Held. Like I was a stray dog someone found dangerous enough to cage. A distant engine hummed outside. I know engines, how they breathe, how they carry intent. This one idled too long, too low, like whoever was inside wasn't ready to get out yet. My hand slid across the table toward the old K-bar knife I kept nearby. Habit, not panic. Then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. I didn't answer. Real friends don't knock like debt collectors. Mr. Grayson? A voice called through the door. Calm, too calm. We're with St. Emery's Behavioral Health. Your physician, Dr. Keller, requested we transport you for immediate evaluation. My blood turned to ice. Evaluation for what? I shouted back. A second voice chimed in, deeper, authoritative. We're not here to debate, sir. This is an emergency safety hold under state code. Please open the door, or we will be forced to involve law enforcement. Law enforcement, that's when it clicked. This wasn't about my safety. This was about control. I checked the peephole. 2 orderlies in hospital blues stood stiffly on my porch, flanking a security officer with a badge too polished to be real police. They weren't here for conversation. They were here to disappear me. I cracked the door, just an inch. Where's the paperwork? The officer held up a clipboard. Signed by Dr. Keller himself. You're experiencing deteriorating mental stability. You've made statements indicating self-harm and delusional thinking. My jaw tensed. I said none of that. That's your perception, sir, he replied. We need to get you help. Help, right. I opened the door wider, enough to keep them thinking I might cooperate. That's when the first orderly lunged. He reached for my arm, aiming to twist it behind my back. Training move, practiced, predictable. But he didn't know who the hell he was putting his hands on. My body moved on its own, muscle memory from bar fights, brawls, and club wars that carved me into the man I am. I ducked, grabbed his wrist, and drove my shoulder into his ribs. He collapsed with a grunt. The second orderly stumbled back, surprised. The officer reached for his baton, but he was too slow. I slammed the door into his forearm, heard the crack, heard him curse. I shoved hard, throwing my weight into it until the door latched. Their fists pounded the wood immediately. You're making this worse for yourself, the officer barked. Maybe, but better a criminal than a captive. I staggered back, my heart hammering like a piston inside a dying engine. My ribs screamed, my head swam. This wasn't a fight I could keep winning, not alone, not injured. I needed backup. The kind the law couldn't corrupt or intimidate, the kind that rode on 2 wheels and answered violence with precision. I stared at my phone again, that same hesitation gripping me like rust on old steel. Rook and I hadn't spoken in years, not since the night I walked away from the Iron Vipers. I left on bad terms, bleeding from the cheek, pride bruised worse than my bones. Rook and I fought over what loyalty meant. He said I abandoned the club. I said the club abandoned itself. But blood is thicker than broken promises, and I was out of options. My thumb hovered for a breath. Then I hit call. He answered on the second ring. You alive? He asked. Same voice I grew up hearing, gravel mixed with gasoline. Barely, I said. I've got people trying to take me. Keller sent a team to lock me up. Silence, long, heavy. Then, where are you? At home for now. They're outside. Stay put, he said. Lock the back door. I'll be there in 20. The line clicked dead. I didn't waste time. I grabbed the duffel under my bed. Cash, burner phone, a .45 wrapped in an old band tee. My breath came sharp as I moved, pain firing through my side. Every second felt like a countdown. Outside, the orderlies cursed and jiggled the doorknob. The security officer was calling someone, his tone shifting from authority to urgency. They knew they were losing control. Good. I peeked through the blinds. A black SUV pulled up behind their van. Reinforcements. They stepped out, 2 more men in hospital blues. This wasn't a pickup. This was an extraction. My pulse slowed, oddly calm. I'd been in worse corners with fewer exits. Then I heard it, a distant rumble rolling over the night like thunder wrapped in chrome. Motorcycles, 5, maybe 6. The orderlies turned, nervous. The officer reached for his radio. The growl of engines grew louder, heavier, familiar in a way that punched me in the chest with memory. Headlights swept across the yard, 7 bikes pulling up in formation. And at the front, cutting his engine last, was a massive figure with a matte black helmet and a cut patched with the snarling serpent of the Iron Viper's MC, Rook. He stepped off the bike like a man with nothing left to fear. The orderlies froze. The officer swallowed. Rook didn't say a word. He just looked at my house, then at the men who came to take me. And in that look, I saw the promise of violence and salvation. My brother had arrived, and Keller had no idea what kind of hell he'd just invited to his doorstep. Rook didn't knock. He didn't ask permission. He kicked my door open like the world owed him answers, and I was the only one who could give them. The moment he stepped inside, the house felt smaller, like it had to make room for the gravity he carried. Same shaved head, same thick beard, same pair of eyes that looked like they'd watched hope die more than once. He smelled like exhaust, leather, and cold night air. Behind him, 2 Vipers swept the hallway, making sure none of Keller's dogs had circled around back. Rook stared at me. I stared back. First time seeing each other in years, and not a single hug, handshake, or smile. Just 2 brothers studying the damage time had done. You look like hell, he said. So do you, he huffed, something close to a laugh if you squinted at it sideways. You hurt. Always. Good. Means you're alive. That was Rook's version of compassion. Outside, I could still hear the bikes idling. An intimidation tactic the Vipers used well, a constant vibration that said your day just got worse. Rook pointed to my duffel. Grab it, we're leaving. What about them? I nodded toward the porch, where Keller's little retrieval squad stood frozen between fear and confusion. Rook turned, leaned halfway out the busted doorframe, and barked a single order. Move! 7 bikers stepped forward as one. The orderlies scrambled back into their van. The fake officer tried to assert himself, but one of the Vipers revved his engine so close to the man's knee he nearly buckled. They drove off with headlights shaking, tires squealing, dignity left on my lawn. Rook shut the door, what was left of it, and faced me again. You should have called earlier. You're the last person I call for anything. He cracked his knuckles. Still did? I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Brothers speak just as loud in silence. We rode to the safe house, an old auto shop on the outskirts of town. The kind of place that once fixed cars and now fixed problems. The Vipers used it as their outpost when business got too sensitive for their main clubhouse. Oil stains on concrete floors, scattered tools, broken neon signs, and a smell of metal dust and old coffee. Familiar, comforting in that strange outlaw way. I slid off the back of Rook's bike, slow, my ribs screaming. He caught me by the arm before I face-planted. You're worse than you said. I'm fine, I grunted. He gave me a look that said bullshit, but he didn't press. Inside, the club's lightweight hacker, Nails, was already at work on his laptop, screens lighting up the dingy office like a cockpit. The others spread out, some standing guard, others pretending not to stare at me like the ghost who came back. Rook nodded to Nails. Tell him. The kid swiveled in his chair, pushing up glasses that never quite sat straight. All right, so, your doctor? Keller? He's dirty as a septic tank? Prove it. He tapped a key. A spreadsheet appeared, full of names and dates. Patients he's put under emergency psychiatric holds in the last 5 years. Look at the payouts next to them. My eyes scanned the list. A construction worker with a back injury, $3 million settlement. A woman who won an insurance lawsuit, $8 million. A retired trucker hit by a drunk driver, $5 million. All of them institutionalized within months of getting paid. That can't be coincidence, I murmured. It's not, Nail said. And here's the kicker. Every single conservatorship case went through the same court liaison. Guess who Keller recommended each time? He hit another button. A photo popped up. A lawyer with a plastic smile. Marion Judd. I remembered her. She was present during my settlement hearings. Friendly? Helpful. Too helpful. Rook stepped beside me. This is bigger than you, brother. Keller's running a damn pipeline. Drains the vulnerable, pockets the rich. I exhaled slowly. The betrayal hit different now. Less personal, more monstrous. Why me? Why go after me so soon? Nails shrugged. 40 million is a lot of inspiration. Rook crossed his arms. Plus you're alone. No wife, no kids. Easy target. Paperwork moves fast when nobody fights for you. I didn't say anything. That one landed harder than I expected. The room fell silent until Rook spoke again. What happened tonight was just the opening move. Keller wanted you locked up by morning. And now? I asked. Now, he said, voice low. He knows you slipped through his fingers. He'll escalate. I paced the shop, ignoring the stab of pain in my ribs. My mind churned. Anger warmed my blood. Fear sharpened it. Years of keeping myself calm, quiet, detached. All of that burned away as reality took shape. A man tried to erase me from my own life, and he almost succeeded. Rook watched me, eyes steady, reading every shift in my breathing. Say it. What? That you're in this fight? I met his stare. I didn't ask for it. No one asks, he said. But you either swing back or get buried. I looked at the data again. The stolen lives, the broken families, the quiet, bureaucratic evil Keller had perfected. This wasn't a doctor. This was a predator wearing a lab coat. My fists clenched. My pulse slowed. Something old inside me woke up. The version of me Rook used to call a weapon. I'm in, I said. Rook nodded once, satisfied. Good, because tomorrow we hit Keller hard. We find where he hides his money, who funds him, who protects him. We expose every rotten bone in his skeleton. And then? Rook smiled, that dangerous smile, the one that promised ruin. Then, little brother, you get to decide what justice looks like. For the first time since the refinery blast, I felt like I wasn't drowning. I felt like a man resurfacing, gasping air, ready to fight. The Vipers moved into motion, assignments, scouting, intel gathering. The shop filled with the hum of purpose. I stood there watching it all, realizing I wasn't alone. Not tonight, maybe not ever again. Outside, dawn crept over the horizon, pale and unforgiving. My hell had a name now, and with Rook beside me, Keller was about to learn mine. The thing about revenge is, people think it burns you up. Truth is, when done right, it clarifies you. Cuts the fog, sharpens the bones, shows you exactly who you are and who the hell you'll never be again. By the time we took aim at Keller, I wasn't the broken patient he expected. I was a man reclaiming his life with a brother at his side and a motorcycle club behind me that didn't believe in half measures. The morning sun hadn't cracked the sky yet when Rook spread the blueprint of Keller's private clinic across the workbench. The place looked more like a boutique hotel than a psychiatric center. Glass walls, minimalist cruelty, rooms that could hold people without leaving marks. Rook tapped the office wing. Security cameras here and here, one guard overnight. Keller comes in early, usually before staff. Workaholic or control freak? Both, I muttered. So we get him alone, Rook continued. Nails will loop the cameras. Ghost and Torque handle the perimeter. You and me go inside. I stared at the map, jaw tight. And then? Rook looked at me with that steady, dangerous calm he wore like armor. Then you get the truth on record. Truth. I wasn't sure I even remembered what mine looked like anymore. I'd been lied to, medicated, observed, documented, and damn near institutionalized by a man who smiled while doing it. I wasn't after violence. I was after ownership. Of my story, my sanity, my name. But if Keller forced my hand, well, some things in life you don't walk away from clean. We rode before dawn, engines low, lights off, the cold air slicing past us. The town around us slept while we followed a purpose sharp enough to cut steel. When we reached the clinic, Nails was already in the van, computers glowing blue against his face. Feeds looped, he whispered. Windows open for 18 minutes. Try not to make me regret this. Torque and Ghost positioned themselves at opposite corners, eyes scanning, hands near the tools they never called weapons. Rook didn't wait for permission. He jerked his chin toward the side entrance. Let's go! Inside, the building felt sterile in a way that wasn't clean, like a lie polished to a shine. My boots were silent against polished concrete as we moved down the hallway. Every step made my ribs ache. Every breath tasted like the fear Keller tried to plant in me. When we reached his office, the door was cracked open. Light spilled out, and there he was. Dr. Raymond Keller, sipping coffee as if he hadn't tried to erase me from society last night. He didn't hear us enter, too focused on his tablet, reviewing patient files like cattle inventory. Rook shut the door behind us with a soft click. Keller froze. His head lifted with slow recognition. You? He whispered. How did you... I stepped closer, voice low and even. You almost had me. I'll give you that. His expression twitched. Fear, then calculation, then entitlement. You're not well. Mr. Grayson, breaking into a medical facility? This only proves... Cut the act, Rook interrupted. We already know about your conservatorship pipeline, the settlements, the falsified evaluations, the judge you greased, the families you bled dry. Keller swallowed hard. You have no proof. Rook tapped the phone in his hand. You're about to give it to us. We pressed him back toward his desk. He tried to assert control. Doctors love control. But with Rook standing behind me like a shadow with fists, Keller knew his tone wouldn't save him. I placed a recorder on the desk. Simple, small, deadly. You'll explain everything, I said. Your practice, your scheme, how you plan to take my settlement. I don't know what you're talking about. Rook cracked a knuckle. Louder than necessary. Keller flinched. Then he cracked. Words poured out. The safe kind first. Professional jargon. Legal excuses. But pressure makes truth sweat through skin. The more he spoke, the more he unraveled. He admitted to targeting patients with high-value settlements, manipulating psychological reports, coordinating with attorney Marion Judd to fast-track conservatorships, siphoning funds through medical stewardship accounts. He talked like a man who believed confession was safer than silence. He was wrong. I leaned in. And my case? Why me? You were ideal, he said, voice shaking. No partner, no dependents, no long-term psychiatric history. The injuries gave us the angle. You were uncomplicated. Uncomplicated. Funny word for a man who survived a refinery explosion and carried more ghosts than spare change. My hands curled into fists, but I kept them at my sides. You were going to take my life. I was going to protect your assets, he protested weakly. People like you make reckless decisions with money. People like me? A man like you doesn't need $40 million, he snapped. There it was. The truth. Ugly, honest, entitled. To him, I wasn't a human being. I was a vault wearing a leather jacket. Rook took a step forward, but I raised a hand. No, this part is mine. Keller backed up until his legs hit the filing cabinet. His breathing grew fast and shallow. He reached into his coat, fast, panicked, and when his hand emerged, a glint of metal flashed. A knife. Small, surgical. A tool of precision, now wielded with desperation. Rook reacted instantly, reaching for his belt, but I moved first, not out of anger, out of clarity. I stepped inside the arc of the blade, grabbed his wrist, and twisted. The knife clattered to the floor. I pinned him against the cabinet, neither of us breathing right. You wanted to put me away, I said, voice trembling from something deeper than fear. You wanted to make me disappear. His eyes darted, frantic. You don't understand. No, I said, but you will. I didn't need to hurt him. I didn't need blood. What I needed was consequence. I let him go. He slid down the cabinet, shaking. Rook picked up the recorder, checked the file, and nodded. Everything we need. We walked out without another word. Behind us, Keller didn't follow. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just sat there, the weight of truth crashing down on him harder than any fist. By noon, the world knew everything. Nails sent Keller's confession to every news outlet, every regulatory board, every victim's family, every lawyer who'd ever shared a courtroom with him. Mary and Judd went into hiding. Keller's clinic shut down by sunset, and the state opened a criminal investigation before the first evening broadcast. $40 million didn't save me, but the truth did. Rook and I sat outside the auto shop at dusk, the sky a bruise fading to night. He handed me a beer. You did good, he said. I almost lost everything. But you didn't. He clinked his bottle against mine. You fought. That's what matters. We watched the sun sink, the engines cooled, the air softened. You staying? He asked. I took a slow breath. For now. Rook nodded. Good. Feels right? I didn't answer, didn't need to, because in that moment I finally understood something. Revenge didn't heal me, justice didn't fix me. But having my brother beside me again, that brought me back to life. And somewhere out there, Keller was learning the one lesson he never expected. When you try to lock a man in a cage, you'd better make sure he doesn't have people who know how to break doors open.